Welcome to Adult ypww, Lesson 9. I do not own the rights to this music. The lesson text is coming out of Micah chapter 5, verses 10 through 15. The topic is Jesus the Judge. The lesson aim. The aim of this lesson is for believers to see how many Christians reject Christianity, but to turn a blind eye and celebrate sinful acts will cause nations that reject God to suffer. The memory verse. I will read the New King James Version first and then the King James Version of Micah chapter 5, verse 10. And it shall be in that day, says the Lord, that I will cut off your horses from your midst and destroy your chariots. The King James Version. And it shall come to pass in that day, saith the Lord, that I will cut off thy horses out of the midst of thee, and I will destroy thy chariots. The introduction. God will decimate your defenses. One thing is for sure. God does not seek to share his glory. This is especially true when he wants to get glory out of your lives, out of our lives. Too often we put up defenses and are in too great of a position for him to get glory. If he blesses us when in certain situations, we will give credit to the resource and not him, the source. Therefore, it is sometimes necessary to take away the resource so that it is undeniable that the help came from the Lord. I remember when our church was growing, we had going from 6 members to over 120, and we're excited. However, our musician thought that he was the one growing the church. In fact, as the pastor, I relied on our great music to excite and bless visitors. After all, I pastored in Africa amongst black people who love music. Therefore, I was devastated on the Sunday morning when our musician quit the church and took his keyboard, our only speaker, and the microphones. That was a difficult Sunday morning, but thanks to a pastor in our district, he loaned us some sound for the day. However, the challenge was that I thought our church was doomed. Without music, how can you lead black people? I thought without music, the church would never grow. We bought speakers and instruments. To our disappointment, we did not get a new musician for about a year and a half. Yet, the church grew by leaps and bounds without music. This was confusing to everyone. I'm certain that the Lord allowed what we relied upon for our strength to go down so that we could see his power. Today, the church in South Africa is over 2,000 strong. Adult disciples of Christ, and all of the musicians are young people that grew up in the church that we trained. They now play to the glory of the Lord. Conversely, God had promised to protect the nation Israel, but they were more reliant on their military might than they were on the power of God. Therefore, he promised to cut off their military. He said, and it shall be in that day, says the Lord, that I will cut off your horses from your midst and destroy your chariots. The discussion, sorcery and witchcraft rejected. Further, God promised to destroy the witchcraft in the nation. I will cut off sorceries from your hand, and you shall have no soothsayers. Your carved images I will also cut off, and your sacred pillars from your midst. You shall no more worship the work of your hands. I will pluck your wooden images from your midst. Thus I will destroy your cities. God never wants to compete with other gods. They deserve no glory. That belongs to God. God promises to cut it all off. When people rely on other gods, then they do not look to the God of the universe. The list of sorcery and witchcraft seems old and ancient, but it can apply today. People are using the same spirits. He promised to destroy sorceries, black magic, witchcraft, voodoo, soothsayers, psychics, false prophets, carved images, crystals, God images, sacred pillars, ancestral landmarks, Masonic Eastern Star relics, work of hands, idols, good luck charms, wooden images, ancestor pictures for good luck, gods and logos of companies, Starbucks, So today, God is saying we must choose between the things of Satan and the things of God. The application: God will cut off the pagan nations, and I will execute vengeance in anger and fury on the nations that have not heard. It is first very important to note that the Hebrew word for the last word heard is better translated as obeyed. Therefore, it would be best rendered that vengeance and anger and fury are on the nations that have not obeyed. When nations reject God, there are national consequences. It is interesting today for Christians to reject that the USA is a Christian country. Even Christians want to reject the Christianity basis of the entire country because of the sin of slavery. Indeed, slavery was heinous and antichrist in nature. However, it is undeniable that the country was founded on Christian principles. However, there was a rejection of God in practices such as slavery. Today, the United States stands in judgment for larger sins than slavery. The genocide of abortion that literally kills approximately 3,500 innocent children daily stands as an insatiable demonic murderous frenzy for over 40 years. God will judge Black, white, Latino, and Asian people in America and around the world for this fundamental injustice. Those that were in Germany in churches and civil society that did not agree with Nazi Germany policies but turned a blind eye to their bloodthirsty killing of innocent Jewish lives have blood on their hands. There is a responsibility of the righteous to speak truth to the forces of power in any given country. When nations reject God, they suffer. Look at the downfall of the Greek and Roman empires. They were mighty and strong, but they celebrated sinful acts and other gods, and their powerful empires are decimated. Corruption in many countries, genocide, arrogance, and religious pluralism has led to rejection. It is important for those in the church to cry aloud. When God cuts off a nation, they are cut off. Where are the Assyrians today? Or the Mayans, the Hittites, the Babylonians, the Medes, the Persians, the Romans? They are cut off. The same fate can be in your country if they do not turn to God. Eventually, God cast judgment on the Assyrian nation. He spoke of their capital, Nineveh, and impending judgment for the national sins of oppression around the world in the prophetic book of Nahum, saying, "Behold, I am against you, says the Lord of hosts. I will burn your chariots in smoke, and the sword shall devour your young lions. I will cut off your prey from the earth, and the voice of your messengers shall be heard no more." And that's Nahum chapter 2, verse 13. Indeed, when God cuts off a nation, it is cut off forever. Let the nation turn back to God. The questions for today's lesson. Correction: there are no questions for today's lesson. God bless you and thank you for joining me today.